Brian Rose, London Real, 2 million subscribers on YouTube, 1 million viewers on his live stream with David Icke, a podcast host who interviews some of the biggest names within social media. How did he devolve into someone who scammed millions from his followers? A follower of this channel, Paul Hurley, reached out to me on Facebook and notified me of a situation on YouTube involving Brian Rose. He sent me screenshots of the comment section on Brian Rose's TEDx talk video, and it was clear that hundreds of paid comments existed on this video. Why would he pay for comments to appear on his TEDx talk video that isn't on his channel? Because this is where people can leave negative comments about Brian and not have the comments deleted. Buying comments floods out all of the negative comments. I think Brian Rose has two different personalities, before Dan Pena and after Dan Pena. Before his participation in the castle of Dan Pena, Brian Rose was just a podcaster, a guy having cool conversation with an assortment of guests.
And ultimately, I think people want to connect with other people. And when you spend an hour inside their brain, you almost walk a mile in their shoes. And then you relate to them.
When Brian Rose first began London Real with Nic Gabriel, he was a burned out derivatives trader and wanted to tell cool stories on air. His ethos of having conversations with guests from many walks of life led to his podcast gaining popularity. Enough popularity that even Joe Rogan invited him onto his show. But then he met Dan Pena.
Dan is a He really is. Truly a And I also love Dan Pena very, very much.
Brian legitimately changed after meeting with Dan.
I, on the other hand, was wearing combat trousers, boots, a skateboarding shirt, and I had something growing from here, right? What is that called?
After meeting with Dan Pena and graduating from the fake guru factory, Brian began dressing like a presidential candidate. His podcast, professionalism, and appearance improved. But a part of him within, this little ego and ethos of chasing money, started to appear. What many people may not realize is that it always existed.
I was a little crazy back in the day. I used to watch the movie Wall Street constantly. I used to quote Gordon Gekko. I used to read American Psycho like it was a how-to manual.
This clip was shot for the intro to his first interview with Dan Pena. This may not sound important, but to me, it provides great insight into who Brian always was. The movie Wall Street was all about greed and chasing after money regardless of the legality of the pursuit. Brian was a derivatives trader and said that career was based on pursuing money without actually creating any value for society.
The fact that I just wasn't happy. It is a soulless existence. There's no community. You're not creating anything, especially when they're told their whole lives that once you become a banker, once you make all this money, you're going to be happy.
I think Brian wanted to create something that he saw as valuable to consumers, unlike his previous career.
He doesn't contribute to the vibe of London Real and to the idea that we're trying to look beyond the dollar bill, to look a little bit further into our fellow human being. And
in the same intro just a minute later, Brian even said that the podcast was about looking further than making money. When Brian met with Dan Pena and graduated from the fake guru factory, I think that inner money-making ego came alive and slowly started to present itself. I found this clip to be really interesting.
About 3 years in, I thought, this isn't making any money. I'm literally just having fun like you are on your podcast. And I thought, unless I turn this into a business, I'm gonna have to be a banker. So I created London Real Academy because my viewers were saying, Brian, teach us how to do what you did.
Brian was running a business that was not making any money, and then was asked how he runs this business that doesn't make any money, and then turned that into a $3,000 course on how to run a business. Business Accelerator Academy was born. Does anyone else find this social media business landscape so weird? You make money online by teaching others how to make money online. Let me be clear though, there's absolutely nothing wrong with charging for coaching or access to information. Brian's course is probably plenty fine for a certain customer, but I just find this social media world to be so bizarre.
I've got students in 107 countries, graduated over 5,000 people.
It's funny that graduation is a valuable metric because I personally would rather talk about student success against expectations. At $3,000 per person and 5,000 students, that's $15 million gross revenue over the past few years. He couldn't turn much of a profit before Business Accelerator, and now he's running a 7-figure business, teaching how to run a business. And that's not including the portion of students paying $10,000 for inner circle access. One thing that I find fascinating about course sellers, and I haven't seen anyone talking about this, is the ridiculous interest rates these customers are paying. He prices his course at $3,000. Let's assume that's the market rate for this kind of product. If you finance the course over 6 months, then you will pay $3,600. That is a 20% increase in price over 6 months, meaning you're being charged a yearly rate of 40%. 40% interest if you finance the course. This is like a payday loan, a quick cash loan type of business. In this Vice article written about Brian Rose, the writer is a pretty harsh critic of Brian's attempts to cash in on the hype surrounding the David Icke interview, as well as mentioning negative reviews from students. Brian responded with a 30-minute video asserting that many statements within the article were false and that he would expect Vice to hear from his legal team about redacting these statements. What I found interesting was that he never addressed the segment about Brian Rose's business being in debt. The most recent accounts filed for Longstem Limited, the only active company registered in Rose's name, show a business carrying significant debts. In the financial year ending December 18, the firm had gross debts of more than £374,000, having made a loss of just over £126,500, according to documents filed with Companies House in November of 2019. In the year prior, it lost £174,000. The last time Longstem turned a profit was in its first year, 2016, when it made £15,914. I find it peculiar that he didn't address this paragraph because this would be the easiest statement to redact, along with giving viewers the impression that he was a successful and savvy businessman, because he's running a business teaching others how to run a business, right?
I'm actually an extremely frugal guy. And I always have been with London Real. If we don't have the money, we don't spend it.
For those of you who followed Brian Rose's descent into YouTube infamy, you know where this is headed. I personally think Brian became more popular than he could handle. I see a guy who was a former banker turned podcaster and then all of a sudden had 1 million subscribers on YouTube, was being yelled at by Dan Pena to become a billionaire so Dan's ego could be satisfied, and then had that inner Wall Street greed is good voice find a megaphone. He was never a businessman, nor did he ever build up a 7-figure operation from savvy business skills. He gained popularity from having interesting guests on a unique podcast show right when podcasting was becoming a thing. The David Icke interviews were his tipping point. He took on more than he could handle. He saw an opportunity to start a big movement and became the leader of this digital freedom movement and bit off more than he could chew.
I like to push myself and see how hard I can push it.
Raising over $1 million that quickly is really impressive, but the problem was that he didn't know how to allocate the funds properly. He cared more about a fake award for most live stream guests on his platform, aka his website, more than he cared about the consumers donating money.
Let me say something about live streams. Live streams are expensive.
There was no reason for him to spend $100,000 on a live stream and ask for $250,000 per month in donations to help support this platform. This is what happens when someone isn't properly equipped with the ability to handle money. It's been a disaster since he raised the money.
Realizing that communication is important. So I plan to do this every week and let you know kind of what's going on behind the scenes.
For a guy that has nearly 8,000 videos on YouTube, he didn't seem to want to make videos giving updates on the platform that was built from the funds of his followers.
First of all, I just want to say that all of the money we have raised has not been spent. A small, tiny fraction has been spent. I think, 10 or 20% have actually been spent.
I held off on making this video because I wanted to give Brian a few months for an opportunity to bounce back, but here we are 6 months later and he's been ghost from his communication with his followers.
I'm actually an extremely frugal guy, and I always have been with London Real. If we don't have the money, we don't spend it.
Why haven't you been making videos about the progress for your digital freedom platform, Brian? To me, he made a colossal mistake going for a live stream audience when the paying customers just wanted to see the conversation posted somewhere on the internet and not banned. He massively overspent this donation money and then didn't address the questions followers had about the spending of the funds.
Phase 3 of this platform is all going to be about engaging technology companies and using blockchain to make this even more effective. We've got big plans here at London Real.
It sounds to me like Brian received more attention than he could handle, misevaluated the importance of his channel and the evil corporation spying on him, and went all out to create a new social media platform. Blockchain technology for a podcast? It's an interview with a guest, not a black market with illegal goods being sold. Instead of facing the music and being transparent about his decisions, he then chose to run for mayor and basically sidestepped the entire digital freedom platform conversation. Now he's on a world tour around the city of London. I think it would be more appropriate to call it a city tour because I'm fairly confident he's not politicking outside of London. Brian was never in position to be a guru until he mingled with Dan Pena. He was a podcast host who wore camo shorts and cutoff t-shirts and sold a few digital products teaching people how to sell digital products. Then he soared in popularity, started wearing expensive suits, and turned the David Icke event into an opportunity to raise $1 million. Where that money went is still a great question. Raising money for the digital freedom platform is a great reminder of why I'm pushing transparency from these popular social media gurus so much. When you raise money in most investment schemes, you face legal ramifications if you just bolt and stop answering emails. It would be nice if Brian could be transparent about how he spent the money, but he's off to bigger and better things like running for mayor, I guess. He's been double uploading videos lately, which is really bizarre. His engagement is terrible for a channel with 2 million subscribers, and him buying comments for his TEDx Talk video is sad. To me, he's showing a lot of charlatan behavior, taking money and not being transparent, selling a business course while his business wasn't even profitable, and then buying YouTube comments to hide the negativity. Be careful who you follow on social media. Have you donated yet? Thanks for watching, and thanks to all the new Patreon members.